Back now with former defense official Van Hitt. We've got former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, joining us right now as well, David Rubin. Mayor Rubin, to you first on this and the signal that the president seems to be sending as we're looking at Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. Jared Kushner, of course, just recently having visited Iraq, sending a signal that the U.S. means what it says and says what it means when it comes to tough Middle East policy. Do you think that should include taking out President Assad in Syria?
Well, frankly, I think that the main problem here is humanitarian in Syria. Syria is a quicksand. To get involved in Syria, I think, and other than a humanitarian basis, would be a very dangerous policy for the United States, and it would be destined for failure. Look, I've been wounded in a terrorist attack. My 3-year-old son was wounded, and I've witnessed so many thousands of children who've suffered from the trauma of terrorism. And that's, you know, I ended up starting the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund because of that. And when you have traumatized children like you do in Syria on such a magnitude, I think the United States should get involved on a humanitarian basis, create a safe zone, either near the Jordanian border or on the Syrian side. But I think that's what needs to be done right now. That's where the United States should put its effort. On the military level, I think when you're talking about a choice between Assad, ISIS, or al-Qaeda affiliates, I don't think that it's something that the United States needs to be getting involved in right now.
In other words, the enemy, you know, could be beaten by an enemy you can't even comprehend. Van Hitt, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army, what comes up is that we have to work with Russia to try to deal with Assad and try to deal with this, just as we have to work with the Chinese. And, of course, the president will meet the Chinese premier tomorrow. But to make some progress with North Korea. That's easier said than done on both fronts, isn't it?
Well, it sure is. But, you know, this president said that he inherited a mess, Neil, and he's right. He inherited the most complex foreign policy and national security situation the U.S. president has ever faced. And he's done it with a military that's been decimated. Our Army's been cut to pre-World War II levels. And sometimes we got to work with people that aren't good people, aren't good characters to protect the national security interest of this country. I think the president tomorrow with President Xi Jinping of China is going to lean on him hard to deal with North Korea. They helped create the North Korean situation, just as I believe that the president could and should lean on Putin to help deal with Assad, because let's face it, that regime in Russia has helped sustain the Assad regime. But I got to say this, how about this president and King Abdullah? What a testament of King Abdullah to this president's vision. And let me tell you why it's so important in the Mideast. King Abdullah has referred to the fight against radical Islam, Neil, as World War III, and a fight within Islam itself. And King Abdullah, the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, he and his father were direct descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, very respected in the Muslim world. So it's good to see this president forging this kind of a strategic relationship with King Abdullah in the Middle East.
You know, Mayor Rubin, one of the things that has encouraged Israelis, I guess, about King Abdullah is not only that he honors and respects Israel's right to exist and has been working on behalf of other Middle East nations to similarly recognize Israel, but as part of that sort of agreement, if you will, that he has been a critic of some of these settlements that have been expanded beyond Israel proper, and that something has got to be done about a Palestinian state. He is not quite as vociferous as some other critics in the Middle East. Where does Israel stand in this regard, and how crucial it is that this president deal effectively with Abdullah?
Well, I think it's very nice that he's in favor of Israel's right to exist. But I think it's important to point out that about 70% of Israelis are against Israel withdrawing from eastern Jerusalem, dividing Jerusalem again. Jerusalem is the eternal, undivided capital of Israel, and I have to point out that King Abdullah's Arab initiative that he spoke about speaks specifically and requires the establishment of a Palestinian state in the biblical heartland of Israel, including its capital in eastern Jerusalem. Well,
and that's a non-starter to
It's a
non-starter.
Non-starter. Most Israelis will not accept that. And I think President Trump needs to understand that if he enters that slippery slope, it's a mistake, because we've been banging our Land for Peace heads against the wall for 40 years. It hasn't gotten anywhere.
You know, Blake Berman, who joins the White House as well, Blake, what's interesting is the president has made it very clear he's going to do something. He wasn't going to tell guys like you what that is, or guys like me,
right.
But that he will do something. And, you know, it won't be a red line kind of a thing. Once out there, he will act. What are you hearing are some of the options that involve Russia to try to deal directly with Assad? And if that fails, what next?
Well, the president talked about, Neil, the word he used was flexible. He says he is flexible, and he kind of set himself up for this flexibility here at this news conference. Keep in mind, this is a president who has talked about being anti-intervention as it relates to the Middle East. He says he's been that way for some 15 years plus. It was his administration earlier this week, Rex Tillerson, Nikki Haley, who said it was not removing Bashar al-Assad, not the top priority of the administration. That was a turn from the past administration and had drawn some international condemnation. But here today, the president said he was clearly moved by what he has seen on television over the last 24 hours. He will remain flexible, as he put it, and he said what he's seen on television has crossed many, many lines. Take a listen here to the president just a little while ago.
It crossed a lot of lines for me. When you kill innocent children, innocent babies, little babies, with a chemical gas that is so lethal, people were shocked to hear what gas it was. That crosses many, many lines, beyond a red line.
Neil, to leave you with one last note here from the Rose Garden. In the front row were many of the top senior advisors of the president, the vice president, Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, H.R. McMaster, and on down the line. Not present today, Steve Bannon. As we have been reporting, he has been removed as a permanent member of the National Security Council. When we've been coming to a lot of these press conferences, Steve Bannon has been in the front row. Today he was not. Coincidence? Who knows, but notable nonetheless. Neil?
All right, Blake, thank you very, very much. Van, I want to thank you as well. Mayor Rubin, thank you as well. Again, we'll keep on top of this and what efforts or promises the administration has made, certainly Donald Trump has made to King Abdullah to address this, but saying that I am planning something. He was just not telegraphing, that is President Trump, what that will be in response to Syria, once again, using chemical weapons against its own people. Or when we come